name is CADIN. I've been teaching elementary art for a number of years now. I started in a school district like full-time as an art teacher since 2013. So this is my, I think, 8th or 9th year of teaching. But
the first question I'm going to ask is, how do you use art standards when developing your curriculum?
So usually I will look at what material I'd like to use first, and then I will refer to the National Art Ed standards. And whatever grade level I'm working with, I'm going to look at what they're looking for in those areas of create, connect, respond, and present. And then that's sort of how I plan my lesson to fit those standards.
Okay, great. So this one's always kind of a really good one that I think that younger students who are interested in teaching should learn about, is how to how to modify instruction to help diverse learners. And I realize diverse learners covers a big range, but in general, when you have students in your class that need modifications, what are some things that you might do?
So over the years, I did always try to have all students do kind of the same size of project, but I've learned that when we're doing certain things, for example, weaving, some kids it's too overwhelming to have a full loom when we're doing cardboard weaving. So I've started to, for those students that really struggle, I modify it down to a smaller space, and they can see that they find success in it, mm-hmm. and it makes it easier for them, and they're more likely to continue. So a lot of projects I've actually, in terms of like differentiation, just changing the size or maybe the material used. There are some kids that work better with crayon versus like oil pastel. So you can modify material and size. And I find that helps a lot for different students.
And the important part is they're still learning the skill, right?
Yes,
even if it's something
absolutely.
That's smaller. Okay.
Yeah.
This is something that we've talked a lot about in our class, is helping students to evaluate their artwork. How do we get kids to evaluate artwork, to look at artwork?
So I would say looking at the elements of art, and then also talking to them about what it means to try your best and work, make their project as best as they can. So I have like a little poster in my room that has craftsmanship, that has all the materials and what it looks like. So when we look at filling in a drawing with crayon, mm-hmm. there we talk about what does it look like when we try our best, what does it look like to have, I have a scale of like 1, 2, 3, 4 being really colored in, 1 looking like chicken scratch, like mm-hmm. there's lots of white showing. So referring to the material and how we use the material appropriately, that's sort of how I have them evaluate. Okay. And yeah.
So, and that's for evaluating their own work. And do you ever have them look at like other artists' work and kind of give some, like looking at the elements of art and other artists, like famous artists?
Oh yes, absolutely. So whenever we look at a piece of artwork, we talk about the elements of art, and usually I ask the kids, what are some things they notice? What do you think about it? It's okay to not like it. So we talk about, do you like it? Do you not like it? Why? Mm-hmm. So we do evaluate other art as well.
Can you briefly describe one of your most favorite art activities and tell me why that's the favorite?
There's so many. There's one that I really like doing. However, it's very challenging and difficult, so it causes me a headache all at the same time. But we do 2 abstract paintings in 2nd grade. We do a warm color and a cool color. And this lets the students have an opportunity to explore with the material. They get to experiment, mix colors, make tints, and they get really excited and really into mixing the colors. And we also talk about abstract paintings as being non-representational, so there's no people, no person, or like there's no people, animals, places, things, nothing that's recognizable. Some get it, some don't. And then after we do those, I explain to them that it's very important that it's abstract because we cut them. So with one of the paintings, I make a loom, a paper loom, and then with the other, we cut strips of like weft strips for weaving. So then the next time that I see them after we complete those two paintings, they create their own loom and then they're cut their own strips. So I really like that because it reinforces the warm and cool colors, gives them a chance to paint, but also incorporates weaving. So it's one of my like faves, but it is very challenging.
Yeah. What are some differences you notice in children's art as children get older? Do you notice anything that happens?
I think a few things happen depending upon who the student or who the child is. Some students become less creative, like they feel a little more self-conscious, they're less likely to try something. Like if you tell a kindergartner, draw a picture of your family, they can do it lickety-split. If you give that assignment to like a third or fourth grader, they might say, I can't draw, or they might just draw, some, there's hesitation there. But on the other side of that, you see kids who do have an interest in art that really start to get into it, and they practice drawing at home. And I've had a student in the past that he really didn't like art, he wasn't into drawing, that sort of thing. And now 2 years later, after working with him, I've encouraged him to be artistic in any way possible and creative. And like the beginning of this year, he was drawing, like he just loves drawing. And before that wasn't something he was really into. But I think fostering that sense of creativity, and you can do art in many different ways. It doesn't have to be drawing. So, but it turns out that he's been into it. So,
good.
So yeah, I think kids they develop, if they have an interest, their skills develop over the years, and they get better at drawing things.
Right. What are some artists that you like to feature in your lessons, and why did you choose to highlight those artists?
So in fourth grade, I typically, let me rewind here and erase that. So I like to highlight for portraiture Kehinde Wiley and Amy Sherald, and they are the two artists that painted the Obama portraits. I did not choose them for that reason. I chose them because they are Black artists, and they are really amazing. I saw Amy Sherald's artwork in a women's museum in DC, and I just was blown away. Like I fell in love with it. I had no idea who she was, and that's when I started researching her. And then it just so happened she did Michelle Obama's portrait. But I chose them also because they talk about representing their race. They talk about representing Black people, and how in an art museum, if you were to walk into any art museum, it's mostly white portraiture, and they notice that they didn't see themselves represented in the artwork. And so it's really important that they create this artwork so that other people can see themselves in the artwork, so that it makes going to museums more rewarding, and the word isn't coming to me, but just like
relate to it. They
can relate to it, and it opens a dialogue with the artwork. You're more likely to have a connection and delve into it. So those are my two favorite people that I kind of bring to the forefront for portraiture.
So how does art facilitate child development and growth? What do you think? How does it benefit child development and growth?
I think it's important for many reasons. One of the main reasons, which I don't really experience a ton, I guess I do experience it, but I think it might be more appropriate in other settings. But when little kids, it's hard for them to verbalize their feelings, and so they're able to draw pictures. And I do see it a little bit with the younger kids if I have a very open-ended project where they're able to create, let's say for instance, a playground or something like that. They can they can sort of draw something out and explain a story that's happening within their playground. But I can't necessarily understand it or see it, but it sort of helps them get their idea out, and then they can sort of verbalize it after. So I think art is just a really important tool for expressing yourself at any age, and for younger students, it's really important, because I think they may lack communication. Yeah, I would say that.
Do you use any children's literature to teach your art lessons?
Yes, I do. I've used many different books by different artists, and I usually use it with kindergarten and first grade typically, and it is usually a book that is centered around, an elemental, like elements of art type thing. Like I might do a book about line, or there's a really great book called, I can't remember the name of it, but it's got like little monsters. It's about lines. It's really cute, but it's engaging, and it also reinforces different types of lines. So I've done that with, and even I had an enhanced autism class that I used to, we would do that before every class. We would read a book, and then the project would sort of connect to the book in some way.
Very cool. Do you find, because I find for my subject sometimes it's hard to find the right book to teach. I mean, are there a lot of resources out there that you can use in your art classroom, or is it like nonfiction, fiction? Would you say?
I would say most of the books I've used are fiction, and it really kind of boiled down to the last school I was at, the librarian, and actually the librarian here, I will go and I'll say, hey, I'm doing clay and I want to highlight, a
culture.
Yeah, and usually I usually do clay and connect it with like Mexican or like Native American. So I'll go and I'll ask like, hey, do you have any books that are related to this? And sometimes I will be able to use them. Sometimes it's more of a resource that the kids can look at. A couple years ago I did jungle rainforest paintings for second grade, and I went to the library and I got a bunch of books about jungle animals. And so the kids use that as a visual resource. And most of those were all nonfiction. But in a lot of cases when I'm reading a book, it tends to be fiction. But yes, so
that's good to know. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome.
That was very helpful. I really appreciate it.